So today I'm speaking with Cathleen Gruver. She's lead interior designer at Gruver Cooley, a 116-year-old custom home builder in the greater Washington, D.C. area. Hi, Kathleen. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. So tell me a little bit about I know this is your family's business. So it's 116 years old. Like, tell me about that. How did it get started?
Yeah, so we started in 1908, and it was my great-great-grandfather that started the company. We actually started out building subdivisions in the D.C. area. Like, a lot of D.C. residents might be familiar with Glover Park, and Gruver Cooley was part of making that happen, which is pretty cool. And then it kind of evolved. My dad came in when he was 21. I think he ended up taking over when he was 30. But they were doing some kind of smaller subdivisions closer to the Arlington area. And then it kind of, when my dad took over, it started coming into more custom homes. And then I went and got my master's in interior design in 2015. And started bringing in the interior design aspect into the contracting side of it and kind of grew from there. So yeah, quite the history.
Yeah. So up until, really 2015, was there not an interior design aspect to the business?
No, we had what we would call a selection specialist, which I actually acted as, when I was in high school. I would come in and help with that. We had another woman that worked here at one point in time, and she would basically make binders. This is really old school. She'd have binders she'd make with all the tabs of every room and, the types of selections like plumbing fixtures, staircase, fireplace, all those categories. And she would make these binders. And then when I came in, I started trying to digitize that and, started making my own spreadsheets and that kind of thing. So we can't have binders everywhere. Everything's changing all the time. So we had kind of a light version of a designer. She would just more so be on the specification side of tracking clients' choices. And she wasn't really actually helping do interior design work at all.
Okay. So were most of the clients then working with an outside interior designer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had a few that we had done some projects with. You establish relationships with people. I even kind of interned for one of the people at one point in time and shadowed another one. They're all great and definitely learned a lot from those experiences. But yeah, I think once I got my master's, it was just kind of I'm all in, let's do it. And in 2016, I got the 30 Under 30 National Kitchen and Bath Award. And that really catapulted kind of the interior design, confidence, career type thing. And yeah, it was pretty exciting to kind of offer that and feel confident within offering that to the company as well and to our clients.
Yeah, I bet that was, a huge benefit, not only to your family's business, but also to the clients that you were attracting to have that kind of almost all-in-one service done for them.
Totally. And I kind of see that as a trend going forward is, having more of a one-stop shop. We're kind of like a design build light because we don't have an architect on staff. We do have a handful of architects that we really enjoy working with and we'll always recommend to our clients. But, every architect has their own design style. And so it's nice to be able to have a little flexibility with that. And we might not get some of the projects that we are currently working on if we had one specific architect. So it's kind of nice to have some flexibility with that.
Yeah, I imagine it gives you the opportunity to have some variety in spaces and looks and maybe come up with interesting things that if you had one or two or however many architects on staff, things might start to sort of look the same.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think, I always feel at least from an interior design perspective, for me, I really enjoy the fact that working with all my clients, they all have different styles. And I think, to be successful in this field, in my view of it, is that you're able to kind of create anything for anyone. There's things I personally love, but I think it's cool when you can challenge yourself to do something that might not be your personal aesthetic. But being able to service whoever and give them, the home of their dreams. So I think it's kind of a fun thing to do, have like lots of different visions and ideas to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you first, started, well, I know you were working previously, you said since high school, but once you came on as, the lead interior designer, and really you all started offering that as a service, having not offered that before, what was that like, sort of bringing that new aspect into your family's business?
It was really interesting. I will say, as a woman in the industry, in the design industry, I'm not a minority, but in the construction industry, I am. And, kind of having to earn a level of respect. I'm not just the, CEO's daughter, making my own way through that and showing like, here's the knowledge that I have, and really, gaining relationships and trust from the superintendents that I'm working with on a daily basis and the project managers. That's kind of been a big thing, at least moving forward, is having the design services here, and having the confidence to do that as well.
Yeah, I can imagine you're kind of playing in a different realm with construction, and
yeah, and it's like,
then
yeah, my dad would be like used to referring out to other designers. And so it's kind of like trying to show him, okay, like I've got this, I'm capable. And then he'd see the success with me working with clients and how I was really, growing with that, and the confidence it was giving me to give them what they wanted. And then I was able to listen to what they wanted and deliver that. And that I was getting more and more referrals on my own, and less of him kind of finding opportunities. It was more me bringing jobs to him, which was kind of a cool alternative and flip to be like, hey, look, I'm bringing something to the table too. And here's what I have to offer. And, it's been nice to have his support. And as I said, we are a family business. My mom works here. My sister works here too. It's just nice to have the support of everybody, knowing that we're taking us in the right direction, and that clients are really happy and they're coming to us for a reason and choosing us, not just for the quality construction, but also for our quality interior design. So that's a pretty cool aspect.
Yeah. I imagine that feels really good, especially if your dad is coming to you maybe for, your opinion or your advice.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting growing up and, getting that flip of perspective of like, now he's coming to me. So
yeah. And working with the construction side of the business as well as the design side, where do you find the benefits and the strength from that comes into play?
Right. So I feel like this is the one thing that kind of gets overlooked, is that design and construction are kind of integral parts to each other. Knowing how feasible a design is from the beginning, like somebody just throwing out an idea and it's totally not constructible. That kind of can be a problem, if you're not able to address it from the beginning. So it's kind of nice to be able to work with, my project managers and go through like, here's some of my ideas. Like, can you talk to me about the mechanics of this and how this works? And like, let's make it happen. And how do we get there versus like, this is what I want. Why can't you make it happen? I think, which also gives them that level of respect, as well as being like, wow, she cares how it's being made. It's not like she's just saying, I want it done and this is how I want it done. So, and it's cool because then I can explain it to clients and say, this is why this costs this amount, because this is the mechanics that go into it, behind it. And this is the professional people that have to come in and do this type of work. So it's nice. It's good to gain the knowledge within the experience.
Probably a lot of contractors are, maybe used to working with a designer that might not be so knowledgeable about the construction side, and they just do not understand why something isn't feasible. And, being able to really articulate that to your client so they don't feel like, well, she's just always saying no to me, It's probably really beneficial.
Yeah. And it's nice when, I've also done work with some other contractors as well, just because of, client referrals. And if they've worked with somebody that they're friends with, it's nice to have that connection. And going in, they always have that preconceived notion as to what they think an interior designer is. And then I kind of catch them off guard where I'm, talking to them about things that they don't think I know anything about. So that's definitely a benefit, having that construction knowledge.
Yeah, I imagine. So when you get started with your clients, say it's a brand new project, what is sort of your design philosophy or your process for sort of figuring out what they are looking for, the home that they want to build, the design that they want? Maybe walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, as I kind of have pressed on before, I really like to have the approach of designing for a client. It's not my home, it's going to be their home. So there's a couple of things. One, I do love to have like an in-person consultation with a client just to make sure everything jives and we both feel like we're a good fit for each other. I mean, when you're building a new home, it can be like 3 years that you're working with this person. So you really develop a tight-knit relationship with them, and you want to make sure you kind of feel good about it. I also love the in-person meetings because it can show me how somebody's functioning in their home. I always laugh when people say, oh my gosh, excuse this mess. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't pick up X, Y, and Z. I'm like, no, like I actually don't want you to pick up anything because it shows me what's not working in your current lifestyle, like problems that we can address in either your renovation or your new home. It makes the design better when I know what's not working. I can see it with my own eyes versus them just trying to make a list of things because they were inspired by something on Pinterest. And that's where we kind of get to the next level of kind of developing a schematic for a project, which is so important to help create continuity with the home. A lot of times I'm helping clients build a new home and they want advice on like exterior, which I think is so important. It gets overlooked. They come to me, a lot of times people will come after they've already gone through architectural, and it's just nice to come in the beginning to make sure there's the continuity between outside and inside, because I think having the ability to make somebody feel comfortable coming into a home, it doesn't take you off guard, like walking, what you're kind of expecting. So it gives you a level of comfort walking in. But we always come up with clients, we'll have 3 words. It's kind of a fun exercise they come up with where they pick 3 words that they kind of want their new home to be like welcoming, comfortable, exotic, like it could be whatever words. And then we kind of have some pictures that aren't room inspired, just to help with like colors and textures and just kind of general fun inspiration, just kind of gets people excited, and it takes your mind off of the specifics and being influenced by outside factors. And then we also say, share your Pinterest, your house, whatever, your inspiration photos with us, just so we can make sure we're on the same page, because my design language might be different than their design language. So visuals always help. It leaves a lot less room for error when people can say, okay, I specifically like inset cabinets or unlacquered brass. Like those are the things I like in this picture. So that's helpful as well. And then from there, we build our, catalog of items that we work with them on for their project.
And that sounds really fun. That process sounds like it would be fun for the client to go through that, and maybe something they've never actually even thought about.
It is. And, it can be such an overwhelming process. I have so many people be like, I don't know how you do what you do. And I'm like, well, first of all, if I was doing it for myself, it would be different. I built my own home and I had the same struggles people have. But it's a lot easier when you can kind of help guide people and say like, okay, does this piece of furniture or this tile reflect your 3 words? Like you can appreciate it and love it, but maybe it doesn't fit in this house. Let's put it in your next house, already built that one too. But it's kind of fun to be able to have that to keep people in line and to know that it's going to help them have a better home. Like you can go outside the guidelines a little bit, but it's just nice to have a little structure to go off of, because as you know, there's so many sources online these days, and it's like heavily saturated, overwhelming. You go online, you click in like blue vanity or something, and hundreds are going to come up. You could spend days scrolling through items. So I think it's nice to be able to help clients just kind of like narrow it down. If we're like, okay, we're looking for something that's like organic, modern, that's going to cut your options in half. So that's another way that we can help as well.
Yeah. That actually makes me think about how do you all source and present, all, like you said, there's a million options out there. And I know, I'm sure clients get excited and they start looking at stuff. How do you sort of help them? How do you narrow it down for not for you, but also for them?
I would say that we are kind of like online sourcing pros at this point. You know, what takes somebody maybe multiple days might take me like 30 minutes to find something. I had one person, my sister had an organizing client. She was looking for a rug and she's like, hey, do you think you can like give any advice on like where to find a rug that's similar to this? And I was determined. I was like, I'm going to find the exact rug. And, you know, I searched for 20 minutes and I ended up finding it. And she's like, I spent weeks looking for this. How did you find it so fast? And it's just understanding like search terminology is such a big piece. But in terms of overall selections for a project, you know, sometimes clients will have preferences on something like, I want a Wolf Sub-Zero range, you know, like, so those are going to be things that are just there because that's what they want. And, you know, I'll take time to educate them, being like, you know, okay, maybe they have longer lead times. Are you comfortable with the fact that you might not have a range in time or whatever it is? But the other part of it too is, you know, using our words to help source. And then we're also part of a buying group. So if somebody's like, I really don't know where to start, period, I'm like, let's start looking at some of our ones that I know you might get better pricing on. That might help as well, you know, just narrow it down a little bit. But we'll start pulling things just from the beginning just to have them be able to come into our office and kind of like look through selections and different types of materials and textures, just things to respond to, because things are always so different when you see them in person versus online. And, you know, going into a showroom can also be really overwhelming as well. So we try and narrow it down and kind of curate things within our office and make our own showroom that's more curated towards their home so that they're not feeling overwhelmed by, you know, ideas that are cool, but not for this house, you know? So that's a great way to help guide them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to go back to something you said. You said search terminology when you're looking for product. Tell me about that a little bit. What would you recommend to a designer who wants to get better at searching for product?
I think it's really expanding your vocabulary and getting comfortable, you know, not thinking so narrowly down one aspect, you know, like maybe you're like ribbed or, you know, fluted or, you know, like trying to use a bunch of different words, like pull out your thesaurus, like let's get in there and get nitty gritty with adjectives and just try as many as you can. You know, it can be, the more practice you get, it's like a foreign language almost, you know, the more you practice it and put it into use, the better it is. I also know that a lot of people have had success with using like AI. I know that's kind of controversial, but you know, it's kind of here. And I think that would be silly to ignore that totally. And yeah, I think there's a lot of great places you can pull inspiration from for that as well.
Well, yeah, I would love to learn a little bit more. You mentioned AI. I would love to learn a little bit more about how you all are using it, how you see, you know, the benefits that you can see AI can bring to what you do and maybe even on the construction and the build side.
Yeah. So I think, you know, I've seen some other designers do this. I'm just starting to get my hands into it, but I've seen designers use it for creating a mood board. You know, it's like kind of taking the back work out of it by having something that's smart that can take all your words that you've, you know, curated those adjectives and you can put them in, they can kind of help you bring them together. You can even use it probably to, like if it was Chat GPT, you could go in and give it some, you know, help me create like a better schedule for my timeline for interior design. You know, like there's different ways that you could approach it. It's not just it doesn't have to be visual. I also know you can use the Photoshop now has like an AI generating tools. Like you can select certain things in a picture. So maybe if you wanted to show them, here's the sign of your house with shiplap versus like, you know, whatever, you can do that pretty easily. So I think it's good to evolve with the technology. And I know it can be scary, but I think if you don't harness it, you can easily fall by the wayside and, you know, not be able to kind of excel and keep up with everybody else.
Yeah. Have you seen on the construction, on the build side, how they might use it, or are they dabbling in it or not really?
Not as much. I kind of feel like the construction's like old school, you know, things are kind of slow. You know, I will give them credit. They do like, they're working on a lot of like 3D printing and, you know, other generating type tools. I just started using this really great scanning tool from this company called Canvas. That's great because you can literally take like the technology in your camera. There's this little thing right here. It's called a LiDAR sensor. and you can use that to get like actual measurements of a room. So like now when I go on to like a renovation or something like that, I can scan somebody's whole house just in the first meeting. And then if they want to continue, I can submit them, and I can get I use Chief Architect for 3D renderings. And so I can get them to send me 3D rendered plans of their house, which makes it just great. So it's nice to be able to like evolve with that technology as well, and have things that, work smarter, not harder. So it's a good tool.
That's so interesting. What's it called? Canvas?
Canvas. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like #1 fan of it right now.
Very cool.
Because it takes a long time to do detailed measures. It tells you electric, like where, light switches and outlets are, HVAC. So if I want to say, okay, I want to do a renovation for them, but I don't want to move like some of the bigger like price items, like moving HVAC can be really expensive. So like, let's go around that first and see if it's possible.
Yeah, that's so smart.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Interesting. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. Well, so I'm curious, once you've met with your client, you're working into the project, you're working with them, maybe you're already gone through some selections. I imagine as a designer, especially when you're working with families and, couples, families with kids, there can be a dynamic sometimes between partners or even between parents and kids. And you must feel sometimes like a bit of a therapist. How do you manage all that? Does that come up for you? Is that something that happens or not really?
Not as often as you'd think it would, but I will say, I think I try and be a good listener. And so I always want to tell clients, I think it's hard for people when you're not used to doing this for a living. You come in being like, well, it has to be X, Y, and Z. You see it a little bit more black and white, versus I come in and I'm like, well, I can actually make both of your styles work within this space and you'll both be really happy. So that's good. And I also think that it's really great. We were talking about selections earlier and how we kind of curate those, but we also use Gather. Shocker. But it's been really great for us for just communicating with clients and like letting them come in and communicate with us what they like or dislike. So like a husband can come in and write something in the comments about something they might not like, and it makes it really easy for us to like, no worries, we can find something that's shorter, or in that it comes in black and whatever, there's other options. So that's really nice. And they like doing that because it gives them kind of the dynamic of working together as a team as well. So they can go through, like I have one couple and I love this. They'll sit down together and they'll go through Gather and they'll do like dislike on different items and make their comments. And, they see it more as like something they're working on together, which is really nice because, construction can be hard, especially if you're living in a renovation or something like that can be a lot on anybody. So it's nice when you have something that can bring people together and make it just a little bit easier. And then they can also track the progress of everything as well, which, that's nice when they're not saying, well, where is this? Has it been ordered? What's going on? I want to know where we're at, because people get really eager, especially towards the end of a project, because it's, you've made a lot of decisions. You're burnt out, you have fatigue. So
yeah, they're just ready to move in and live in their beautiful new
I don't blame them.
Me neither. With the construction and all of the sourcing that you're doing, I know you probably are often asked for new technologies and smart home technology. What are you seeing? What's new? What are you seeing out there that's interesting?
I'm going to say my clients are 50-50 on the whole technology thing, but I think it's my job as a designer to always bring it to them and give them the option. They need to be educated in what there is. I love going to KBIS, is the kitchen and bath industry show that they have every year. I go about every other year just to try and spread it out a little. But just seeing what's kind of coming out, there's some cool technology in certain aspects, even if somebody's not into they don't want a camera taking pictures of the contents of their refrigerator, but maybe they want to be able to turn on their range, while they're sitting in their bed, or turn on their steam shower. So while they're finishing out their workout, and they want to be able to have that easy, little things like that. It's good to know where people's comfort levels are. But, some people want to have different iterations of that, especially with smart homes. I have seen the technology has become more accessible, and we do high-end home building. But I will say, it can be quite a bit of a splurge for people to do a whole house, but maybe they just want in certain areas, or somebody doesn't want to have to look for an iPad every time they want to turn a kitchen light on or something. But there's different aspects and avenues of that that we like to do. But I will say it's definitely 50-50 for our clients on how much technology they want in their house. But there are some cool technologies and some like fun little things too.
Yeah. Anything that you like hope that your clients will want to use but haven't yet?
Or that's a good question. I feel like every project is so different with that. Just for a smaller aspect of things, simple things like the smart toilets are really cool. Having like a heated seat or that kind of thing where you're going up. I always love to as I said, the ranges where you can kind of preheat things, or, I get like a notification on my watch when like my microwave's done. It's like your food's done cooking. It's just kind of like the simple little technology things like that. But even smart shades, those are a cool thing to have, that might change with like the sun. You can have them set for that kind of thing, for privacy, different aspects with that. There's also some plumbing companies that have, I know like Delta Brizo, they have a really cool proximity sensor in like one of their faucets that like picks up on your heartbeat. It's like, those are the fun things that I love incorporating into things like a powder room, because they kind of blow people's mind, and it's just kind of a fun little talking point. So your guest comes over and is like, oh my gosh, the faucet turned on by itself. Like I just put my hands up near it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. I think there's going to be more and more option for pretty much anything you want.
Yeah. And for exterior too, we've done a Tesla roof, which was pretty cool. So it's like the solar panels are built into the shingles. This person's never going to get their money back out of this, but it's really cool because aesthetically, how a giant solar panel looks on top of a house. It's really noticeable, but they look like slate shingles. So it's pretty cool.
Wow, that is cool. Yeah. So it just embeds right into the roof. You can't even see it.
Right. It's just the shingle itself. Yeah. You should look it up. It's pretty cool.
Wow. Interesting. The one thing that, like you mentioned, that you all really bring that's different is the construction aspect. So, what advice would you give to a designer who maybe isn't used to working, is getting started working with a GC and into the construction, into the build side of the project? What advice would you give to them to make that easier on both sides, on both parties?
Yeah, both. I think just like any relationship, it's always an emphasis on communication. Whatever you can do to communicate as seamlsly as you can, and being open to setting expectations as to how you like to work, but also being open to how they want to work too. It can't all be your way. And I think the more you can be a good listener and kind of give and take within it, I think the better the project will come out. You got to set your ego aside, and you have to make it a team effort, because you both want the same goal. Hopefully, if you're working with the right people, everybody wants the same goal of creating a quality, beautiful home that's functional. But I also think that it's good to be on top of like timelines and lead times, and just like your selections, having a head start on some of those things, and not really, maybe you're taking the reins a little bit and starting your clients off on the right foot by having things already selected and saying, hey, we've already got all our plumbing fixtures selected. Like, we're ready for you. We're on to the next phase, and whatever you need, feel free to order the rough-ins. We're good. And like I said before, we also use Gather to communicate with builders as well. Like, I've shared it with builders, and it's really nice to say, okay, here's everything on our side of things, to eliminate any confusion with purchasing or selections, like where we're at with things. It's really just makes things so much more seamless, which again is integral in the construction, because, especially after COVID, timelines of things just got so affected. And it was just such a guess as to where we were going to end up with certain things, between cabinets or plumbing fixtures, because of certain finishes or anything. I think timelines have come down a lot, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen again. So it's always nice to just be on top of that and be able to communicate that with the builder as well, if you're not working with a builder that's in-house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so really providing clear documentation and being very specific about, like you said, the finish and
as specific as possible, because I always find that if you're not specific, people will just kind of assume, and you don't ever want somebody to assume because they're probably not going to choose the aesthetic choice that you might have picked. So, it's really nice when you can include specs on something, attach your elevations, any level of detail. I found I'd rather take the time up front to be as specific and detailed as possible so that there's less room for error. And then I'm not taking time out of my day to answer a random question because it's already there. If they're coming to me, it's more of like an emergency thing. Like, we can't get this, the lead time's maybe a year now. Like, we need to change this out. I'd rather answer that question than be asked, what height do you want your shower head mounted at? Like something that's simple and could be called out. So I think calling out as much information as you possibly can. Again, communication. It's really so important.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really key to everything. As far as your sort of connection between your client and the construction, what do you think you have provided your client that maybe, working with another designer wouldn't have been benefit? What benefit are you bringing to that relationship because you can connect the two?
Yeah, I really think it's listening to them and being able to understand them and then be able to explain to them why something may or may not be able to happen. I think that having that knowledge is so important, and that my clients come to me because I have the knowledge, and hopefully, they respect you as a professional. So if you're coming to them saying, we can't do this because of X, Y, and Z, they understand it because you're able to explain it to them. And I think that's really important.
So tell me about where you see the future of Gruver Cooley, where that's going.
Yeah, so I'm really excited for the future. 116 more years, hopefully. We brought in interior design in 2015. I expanded it in 2020. This year, we're adding in professional organizing. And then I'm thinking in the future, we're going to grow the interior design team. I'm really excited about that. Not sure exactly on timing. I don't want to put a number to it or a cap on it, but, I want to continue the history of like custom home building and remodeling and being that one-stop shop that we kind of talked about, where people can come here and we're all a team. We're all on the same page. We're going to give you the most successful project, and we're going to kind of like have a system in place for running it all, and really, taking time to curate those systems and make them work so well, but, to each client, and make sure that people still have that personalized touch to it and that they feel like they're being heard and a part of the process.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Yeah. And is there anything new and upcoming or anything interesting that you want to share?
We're working on a lot of cool projects that I'm really excited about. We have some features. I can't talk about them quite yet, but I'm excited I have at least one project that's going to be out in a national magazine this year. So I'm really excited about that. I thank you. I've also been focusing on that, trying to get stuff out, but I really think that it's important for people to kind of understand that interior design is an investment, and that it will actually save you money in the long run. And if you do it right the first time and you don't cut any corners, you're going to be a lot happier for longer with what you have.
Yeah, I agree. It's worth the investment for sure.
Yeah. And also building your team from the beginning is so important as well. No, everybody's like, is it too soon to reach out? I'm like, no, you could reach out sooner, like they think they have to have an architect first and then the builder and then the designer. And it's like, no, like I'd love to come in. I have so many clients that are like, I wish I had brought you in during the architectural, because we end up having to change some architectural parts. So it might actually save you money in that sense of, if you have a designer working with you, you might be paying hours of that, but you're not having to go back and undo what an architect might have put in. And you can maybe have them work more collaboratively, which has been really great and been successful for us at least.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Bringing in bringing in that design piece early on before you start really doing some structural.
Yeah, exactly.
Harder to change.
Well, and it's okay. Be open to things changing as you go too. Like I always tell clients, like, don't fall so in love with it that you're not open to maybe something better coming along. Because, we can start out with a cool idea, but it could evolve into something even cooler. We could walk the job site and be like, oh my gosh, wouldn't this be the perfect place for a wine cellar or, whatever, X, Y, and Z, there's a lot of different things that it's good to be open-minded to, and to know that your design can evolve and grow as your project goes along. As I said, it could take a few years. So, be open to it.
Yeah, that's good advice. Well, great. Well, if someone wanted to follow Gruver Cooley, where's the best way to view your work, learn about you?
Yeah. So we're actually about to relaunch our website. We've been working with a branding company. So that's www.gruvercooley.com. We're going to have everything consolidated to one. And then Instagram, I'm always posting stories. It's like, if you want to come follow along, I have stories, I have tips that I post, but that's at Gruver Cooley Homes and Interiors. And yeah, sometimes I put stuff on TikTok, but that's kind of a work in progress. Right now, it's mostly Instagram.
All right. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Kathleen. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And we look forward to seeing what you guys continue to do.
Thanks. It was so great to be here. I appreciate it. And I've enjoyed this talk.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.